Kia ora, kia ora. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Renee. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to talk about the books that I read in June. I'm trying to get on top of the reading wrap-ups. I want to get this done. June was a bit of a weird kind of reading month for me. I felt like I was reading the entire month non-stop, how I normally am. For some reason I only read 5 books, which is not a lot given how many books I have been reading each month. Might have something to do with all of the reality TV that I've been watching. So yeah, that might have something to do with why I haven't read as much this month, but I feel like I was reading the whole time, so I was like really surprised when very late in the month I was like, I've only read 2 books, how is this possible? But here we go. Anyway, let's get into the books. First up, I read Kudos by Rachel Cusk. I finally finished the Outline trilogy. I'm very happy about it. It took me nearly a whole year. No particular reason. Sometimes these things just get put on pause. I'm not one of those people that's like have to read everything back to back to back if it's like a series or a trilogy or a quartet or whatever. Just happy to go at my own pace, and I was feeling like some Cusk this month, so I was like, if I'm gonna read anything by Cusk, it needs to be the trilogy because I can't keep putting that book off. I really loved it. No surprises. This trilogy is one that I will always cherish. It was my introduction to Rachel Cusk and this idea of like what fiction can be. I loved the concept of learning about this character through her conversations with other people. The interpreting that I was able to do as a reader, the kind of observations that she makes and the way she, almost as an act of like translation for writing the story. Yeah, these conversations were really normal and everyday, but I found myself really thinking about them in ways that I wouldn't have before. And so I miss that about Rachel Cusk's writing, and it felt like a real comfort to go back into it. I think this book did a really successful job at bringing a close to this series and revealing more about the character of Faye. I feel like it had a lot of its own kind of personality, and it was a lot more kind of tongue-in-cheek. She's poking a lot more fun at the literary world and making comments about it that I think probably don't sway too far from Rachel Cusk's own. Yeah, it was just a really fun kind of end to a series that I have really enjoyed. Some of my favourite conversations, I think, have come from this book, and yeah, I'm kind of sad it's over, but really glad to have fallen in love with Rachel Cusk as a writer through this series. I think it's a great entry level for her as a writer, and I cannot wait to read more. But yeah, I will miss Faye and her conversations. Would love to sit next to Faye on a plane and have a conversation with her. Even though I hate talking to strangers, I would talk to Faye for sure. Or I would let her talk to me. I want to know about her. I want to know about her firsthand. We'll have a cup of tea. Okay, the next book that I read in June is The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. Very proud of myself for making it through the 600-pager. It's quite a big book. It's also probably why I didn't read that much this month, because it's a lot to get through. I also paired it with the audiobook, which was great. It added to the whole experience. It really enhanced the characters. The narration was really good, and I would recommend doing that if you're thinking about reading this book. But I loved my reading experience of this book. I really enjoyed it. It's my first Jonathan Franzen, and it will not be my last. I think I want to read the corrections next. This book follows the Lamberts. They are your average kind of American family who live in the Midwest. You have the husband Alfred, who is a retired railway worker. He has dementia. Oh no, he has Parkinson's, but is also suffering from some dementia because of that. His wife Enid is a housewife and a mother, and she has dedicated her life to her family, taking care of them. She's increasingly finding it harder to do that with Alfred's kind of deteriorating health. And they have 3 grown children, Gary, Chip and Denise, who all are dealing with their own kind of problems, ranging from family difficulties, depression, sexual identities, careers. There's like weird kind of international crime going on as well. This book is kind of quite interesting in the things that it brings into the story, but it's definitely a character study of this family, all in some way clawing at this idea of the American dream, but they're essentially each trying to correct certain aspects of their lives and feeling as though once they do that, once they get past these kind of hurdles, that everything will be okay. And as you're reading, you are becoming very aware that like, this isn't going to fix your problems. Like the issues that you're having are much deeper than, I need to like get my wife to agree to come to Christmas and then everything will be okay, or I just need to write this screenplay and all my problems will go away. Like, yeah, it was very entertaining to read these characters try to fix their problems and everything that kind of came up against them while they were doing that. Thought the writing was fantastic. I think Franzen's ability to describe an everyday object in such an engaging and interesting way created this quite kinetic energy while reading the book. It's a big book, but I feel like it reads quite fast because of that. Yeah, and it just kind of opens your eyes to this very humorous and witty type of language that feels quite satirical and just like taking the piss, which I absolutely love. And then I'm gonna compare it to White Teeth because I think it falls into that same genre of maximalist novels. It's the whole reason why I picked this up, because Jonathan Franzen has been described as a maximalist novelist. I think they both kind of offer different things. The humor is very different, the themes are very different, but they're exploring them in a lot of the same ways. So if you've read White Teeth and you loved it, I would recommend this, and vice versa. If you've read this, and then I would always recommend White Teeth till I die. Any excuse to talk about White Teeth, I will, because that book is the best. Okay, the next book that I read in June was The Pisces by Melissa Broder. This is a much contentious book, I believe. A lot of people love it and a lot of people hate it. I wanted to find out which side of the fence I was on. I'm like a not bothered by this book person. I didn't love it and I didn't hate it, but I am leaning towards more like just not really enjoying it. It just wasn't for me, I don't think. I also think that this is a book that the blurb doesn't do it justice. It reads a little bit like bad romance, which I don't know, maybe it's supposed to, maybe it's like really leaning into that, but yeah, there was a lot more going on than I think the blurb gives it credit for. That's one thing I'll say. But in saying that, it wasn't enough to kind of win me over. In this book, we're following a character named Lucy. She is an academic who is writing her dissertation, her PhD on Sappho and her poetry. Lucy is going through a breakup. She has a bit of a breakdown, does some crazy stuff, and almost gets arrested. So her sister comes to the rescue and asks her to come out to Venice Beach. She'll pay her to dog sit, but she has to also agree to join this love, and I don't know if it's a sex addiction, it's a love addiction group, as like a caveat to coming out. So she agrees, she comes out, she starts like going on dating apps and meeting up with these guys, and she is really trying to fill this void that she has in her with men and sex, and this journey to find love but looking in all the wrong places kind of story. And in the process of it, she also meets a merman and becomes kind of lovesick over him. I can like see and appreciate all that this book is doing, like the honesty and the kind of humor that is mixed in there with it, but I don't know, it just didn't quite land enough for me to be a success. I kind of felt a lot of it was quite cringy. There were certain parts where it was like poking fun at itself, but at the same time felt like it was trying to be sincere and deep, and the mix of it didn't quite work for me. Not a book that I like wholeheartedly loved. It was entertaining, and there were definitely funny moments. Like, she's a humorous writer. I just think that a little bit just too much going on for me, and a lot of it didn't quite kind of feel relevant at certain points. The merman sex did not bother me at all. I mean, I kind of understood the whole idea of her falling in love with a fictional character and it not working out, but yeah, the young boy kind of stuff really creeped me out. Him constantly being referred to as being young and looking like a boy, a little creepy. Okay, the next book that I read in June was The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. I loved this book so much. So good. I am trying to read all of Ferrante's work this year. It's going pretty good. This is my 7th book of hers, and definitely my favourite so far. I feel like this book has managed to, or is Ferrante taking the idea of motherhood that she's explored in her Neapolitan Quartet and The Days of Abandonment in different ways, and really distilled it down to like this pure frustration and rage and emotion, and present it in this book in such a way that is just so perfect. If you want to read about a woman who is having a hard time being a mother and what that feels like, this book is exactly what you want to read. It was perfect. In this book we follow Leda. She is in her late 40s. She's an academic and a mother who's decided to go on holiday to this island to work and to write and to read. And there, as she visits the beach each day, she's watching this Neapolitan family who has kind of taken over. There's a lot of them. And specifically, she's noticed this young mother, Nina, and her young daughter, Elena, and has become triggered somewhat by seeing them, and has remembered a lot of her own kind of experiences as a young mother at that age, There's also a doll involved. The doll belongs to Elena, and it's kind of like this symbol for this natural maternalism that Elena feels towards it, to take care of that and kind of what it does during the novel, and what it kind of stirs up in later. And things proceed to happen after that have this eerie, kind of sinister undertone to the whole book. Leda is left to kind of deal with a lot of the decisions she had to make as a young mother, and what seeing Nina and Elena together kind of means for that. Yeah, I think this book does so many clever things in just the most brilliant kind of way. You can always tell when I really like a book because I find it so hard to find the exact words to describe what it is that I loved about it. This definitely feels like Ferrante's masterclass into storytelling and the symbolism that she uses, and these kind of slowly eking out of these characters and learning about their pasts and the things that they've done. She does this all in such perfect timing in this book. There's no fluff or filler. Everything is just exact. I would say if you're interested in motherhood and the struggles of it, that you need to read this. So, and then to kind of go off of this is the last book that I read in June, and that's The Beach at Night by Elena Ferrante. I would say that this is like a companion novel to this. I thought it was specifically writing the experience of this doll from this story and the night it has on the beach, but it's not. It's more just a different perspective of this story and this idea, and it's more playful and more imaginative, and it definitely speaks more to the bond that a child can have with a toy. Yeah, it's done in a really kind of like fun way. It's quite dark and scary, I would say. I still am questioning whether or not this is actually a child's book. Yeah, it was a really kind of just like fun piece to add to this and think about in relation to this, and I'm sure it will crop up a lot more ideas for me to sit and ponder. I also watched the film with Olivia Colman, and I thought that was really, really brilliant as well. She is a great actress she just makes it all look so effortless and so natural that it doesn't feel like acting, and that's exactly what I think a Ferrante adaptation needs. Definitely favourite book of the month. And I'm all done. We did it. Another month wrapped up in a nice little bow. My Peter Pan collar. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let me know what you read in June. What was your favourite book? If you have any recommendations for me, I would love to hear them. Always down for more recommendations. Thank you. I appreciate every single one of you. And I'll see you in the next one. Ka kite.